It's November 16th. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet come out in about 30 hours, and I've made it my goal to be one of the first people in the world to complete the Pokédex. So let's begin. I'm gonna need to make sure I can get the game as soon as possible if I want to do this, and no, I don't mean doing a sketchy back alley deal or pirating the game. Scarlet and Violet releases Friday, November 18th at 12 AM asynchronously, meaning Japan and Australia will get the game first, while lousy Americans like me will get the game last. The difference amounts to about 14 hours of total playtime, so I'd be at a massive disadvantage to any players in those regions with the same goal. Getting on an airplane to play a children's game 14 hours early isn't really all that practical, so instead, I decided to sign up for a Japanese Nintendo eShop account. This let me get the Japanese versions of both Pokemon Scarlet and Violet so that I could play the game as soon as it officially releases in Japan. This sort of thing isn't new. American content creators and streamers have been doing this for years to play games early without breaking any rules. Now, all I had to do was be ready to start playing the game on November 17th at 10 AM Eastern Time. Okay, it's about 9:56 AM, so I should be able to start playing Scarlet and Violet in a few minutes. I think I screwed up because it looks like people already in the Australian region are playing the game, so I might not be one of the first people starting, but that's all right, because I don't think many of them are crazy enough to try and stream for the next 30 hours, so here goes nothing. I started my run early that morning as soon as the game unlocked and laid out the rules for the challenge. This would be a solo run, meaning no online, and any Violet exclusives would need to be caught by me on my second Switch and traded over to my main profile on Pokemon Scarlet. Additionally, all major gameplay needs to be recorded to prove that I personally caught every single Pokemon, and lastly, pirated or leaked copies of the game are not allowed. First thing I did was adjust my settings so that text speed was fast and I wouldn't receive prompts for nicknames. I kept on cutscenes just to make sure I wouldn't get lost and headed downstairs to get ready for school. I met up with Director Clavel and Nimona to pick my first starter, Sprigatito. I kicked Nimona's butt in a battle and start heading to school until I accidentally fall off a cliff and meet Dog, the legendary Pokemon of the game. After a short segment where I get to feel what it's like to be an escort NPC, I meet Arvin, who challenges us to a battle and gives me the Pokeball for that cool dog I just found. Neat. Afterwards, I headed to Mesagoza, catching as many Pokemon as I could along the way, battled Nimona again, and then saved the game. Since I still needed the two starters, Fuecoco and Quaxley, I needed to play through the intro 2 more times. I booted up my second Switch, created Fur 2, played through the intro again so I could trade Quaxley, and then repeated this one more time for Fur 3 for Fuecoco. Now that I had all 3 starters, I continued on to the start of the treasure hunt where I learned my 3 main objectives to complete the game. Defeat the Pokemon League for Nimona, take down Team Star for Cassiopeia, and defeat all of the Titan Pokemon for Arvin. I decided to head east towards Artisan for my first gym battle. Like normal, I caught any new Pokemon on the way, bringing the count all the way up to 45 by the time I reached the gym. I took on the first gym challenge, hide and seek, and found the Tensonphora they asked for. Since it was a grass type gym, I demolished it with Fuecoco and then headed north to my first Team Star raid where I partnered up with Clive, the unassuming student who wants to help us take them down. Anyways, I start the battle with the trainer who's guarding the entrance. Level 25? Excuse me? Excuse me? Yeah, so I just learned the hard way that this game has no scaling based on completion, and in spite of it being an open world, there is actually an intended order to beat objectives based on their levels. I was still able to beat the fight, but you shouldn't be spending 5 minutes on a grunt with a single Pokemon. I decided I probably wasn't ready to take on the rest of the raid and headed even further north to Levincia to take on the gym challenge. I met Iono, who refuses to battle me until I played hide and seek with her on stream, the f***ing clout chaser. Anyways, I tier 3 subbed my way into a battle, and gosh, this fight sucks. I had no clear counters for a race and had to cheese my way to victory with potions and revives. After that mess, I felt like now was a good time to revisit the Team Star raid, so I completed the weird Star Barrage section and battled Mela. Now, maybe the math works out that- wait, I have the- I'm fighting the car? What do you mean I'm fighting the car? Can I use yawn on the car? Can I put it to sleep? Aww, that's so disappointing. So apparently the car is a Pokemon, but I eventually take it down to defeat Mela. Because I was so underleveled, the whole fight took about 13 minutes. This is not normal. I have to be missing something here, right? Well, as it turns out, the first gym leader you're supposed to fight is actually on the west side of the map, so whoops. I should probably go do that. The best Pokemon in Katie's Bug-type gym was level 15 when mine was already 30. Needless to say, I destroyed the fight and spent the next bit catching Pokemon all the way up until 72 total. This is when I decided to finally try my first Titan Pokemon. These encounters are basically just large boss Pokemon, and our first one, Bombardier, is pretty easy because I was supposed to do this earlier, just like the gym leader. After the fight, Arven uses the Herba Mystica we received from the battle to make some sandwiches, which I feed to my dog, unlocking the ability for it to swim across water. I really wish I knew beating the Titans unlocked abilities earlier, but it's a bit too late for that now. I spend the next few hours focusing on clearing more bits of the story, taking down Giacomo of Team Star, Kofu of the Water Gym, Larry from the Normal Gym, and the Earthworm Titan. Finishing Earthworm, my Girafarig wanted to learn Twin Beam, which is actually a required move for evolution. I took it, causing it to evolve along with my Fletchling into Talonflame, putting me at 111 Pokemon. At this point, I wanted to focus more on one of the harder evolutions, Pomo. For this Pokemon, I had to walk with it for 1,000 steps in Let's Go mode. I started running around with my Pomo out, letting it take down and find other Pokemon. For some reason, it didn't seem to be evolving on level up, so I figured 1,000 steps was just more than I thought. I did this for over 20 minutes, letting it level up inside and outside of battle because I figured I might just be doing something wrong. Still no evolution. There had to be something weird going on here, so eventually I decided to just start running up and down Alfornada Town with my Pomo out for about 5 minutes before using a rare candy, which finally made it evolve. In total, I probably ran with this Pokemon out for around half an hour, but at least I was finally done. And let's go do the gym. It crashed. I've never seen this game crash, but I'm not surprised. Oh my gosh. I think we keep the evolution though. I think we keep it. 12 hours is just too long apparently. Chat, he didn't evolve. They did not save. Do I have to do all that walking again? Oh my god. You're kidding me? It didn't autosave. Fortunately, it only took another few minutes to re-evolve Pomo. I took on the Psychic Gym next, where we did what had to be one of my least favorite gym challenges yet. It's this stupid rhythm game-like thing that doesn't really even feel like a rhythm game. Either way, I absolutely hated it, but did finish it so I could battle Tulip. She isn't really that tough of a battle because my two strongest Pokemon have good type matchups, and I beat her on my first try because of that. Next, I captured most of the Pokemon available near Alfornada Town until I reached 136 total, then I traveled back to the Asado Desert where I defeated Great Tusk with Arven. The next 2 hours were closely focused on catching Pokemon, and it felt like I was making quick progress. Nearly 15 hours into the stream, I had caught 187 Pokemon total. This put me near the Ice Gym leader, and since I was primarily using Skeledirk at this point, it was the easiest gym yet. Since this was so near the Ghost Gym too, I took on Rhyme as well and earned my 8th gym badge. At this point in the game, I had completed every gym, beat 4 out of 5 Titans, and cleared 3 out of 5 of the Team Star bases while having captured 190 Pokemon. I headed in the direction of Ares' Team Star raid because it was near one of the more complicated evolutions in the run, King Gambit. I caught a Bisharp in the same area holding a King's Crest and proceeded to use it to defeat 3 more Bisharps holding the same item. Once I leveled up, this triggered the evolution. I caught some other notable Pokemon in the area like Slacking and Oranguru before heading into the base with 212 Pokemon. I'm pretty comfortably leveled for the area fight, so it isn't hard at all. At this point, I really just wanted to complete the story, so I wrapped up the last Team Star base and confronted the big boss, who turned out to be Clive all along, who was just Clavel in disguise, which is something I genuinely did not realize until this point. But we beat him, and he admits to not actually being the leader, so we head up to the courtyard to confront the real boss, Penny. All this time, she had been leading Operation Starfall as Cassiopeia to get us to take down her friends' bases because of friendship or something like that. We beat her, saving love and friendship in the process. Next, I make it my goal to wrap up Arven's story by defeating the last Titan. As it turns out, all this time he's just been wanting to support his dog by defeating Titans and collecting Herba Mystica, because he has a neglectful mom, which makes the dog his only real friend. Which, I mean, hey, I get it, dogs gotta be my favorite Pokemon too. But anyway, it turns out his mom wants to talk to him for the first time in years, so we have to visit the Great Crater of Paldea, but to make sure we're ready, I have to beat him in a fight. As it turns out, I went from being underleveled to overleveled leveled to under-leveled again because this fight was painful. Skeleturk was the only Pokemon on my team above level 60 because the entire game I've been swapping out my party to evolve various different mons. Unfortunately, this meant my first attempt I lost, but thankfully I turned things around the second fight. We had already convinced Penny to come to the crater with us by resolving the team's star story, so now all that was left to do was convince Nemona by defeating the Elite Four. I was nervous because I had a pretty under-leveled team, so I focused on either using Skeleturk or Meowscarada to sweep the opposing team depending on typing, and while there were a few issues, it mostly worked. I beat the Elite Four, used the same strategy for the champion, and now all I had to do was once again defeat Nemona. Nemona is honestly one of the most annoying characters to fight in the game because she just always wants to battle and I hate it, but whatever. I basically just cheesed her fight with potions and revive. That sort of strategy is becoming pretty normal for me because I have an under-leveled team, and since we beat Nemona, that meant all 3 of our main treasure hunt objectives had been cleared, opening up the crater for us to explore and meet Professor Sada. As it turns out, she's been neglecting Arven to make a time machine, died somewhere along the way, and is now replaced by an AI robot version of herself. I cannot imagine how tragic this is for Arven, but hey, we kind of have to kill her again to shut down the time machine, so we do the battle and win, but a backup protection protocol kicks in, so Dog has to save the day by defeating Evil Dog. This fight is completely scripted for you to win, but I was scared, so I healed anyways, finally beating the game after 22.5 hours and 243 Pokemon. At this point, my focus turned to catching every Pokemon available in Pokemon Scarlet. I immediately turned back to the crater to catch the remaining Paradox Pokemon. Most of them were pretty straightforward to find, but I struggled locating the cave where Roaring Moon spawned. Eventually, with the help of my Twitch chat, we found the right area and caught the Pokemon. Shortly after, I found a Volcarona, which would be a great capture since Larvesta has such a high evolution requirement, but I kinda accidentally killed it. The last Paradox Pokemon needed here was Sandy Shocks, which I was eventually able to catch, bringing my total up to 249 Pokemon. With this challenge, something I haven't mentioned yet is that I've been streaming for the last 25 hours and haven't slept at all. I think my original plan was to get some sleep at some point, but I really didn't get tired at all, so I just decided to keep going until I felt like I couldn't and just continued to catch Mons. I decided one of the next ones I wanted was Annihilate. This one has a kind of specific evolution requirement of using Rage Fist 20 times. After I did that, I let it sit in my party while I caught more Pokemon until it eventually leveled up and evolved. By the 27-hour mark, I had already reached 305 Pokemon, and it felt like I was continuing to make good progress, but at around the 29-hour mark, I decided I wanted to try a new strategy. Some of the rare pre-evolution Pokemon were proving harder to capture than their evolved counterparts, so I decided to try hatching some eggs for these Pokemon. I had not used picnics at all up until this point, so I was struggling a bit to figure out how the breeding mechanic actually worked, but 15 minutes later, I had gotten my first egg. I decided to double up egg hatching with another Walk 1000 Steps and Go mode Pokemon, so by the time the egg hatched, I could confidently use a rare candy to evolve the Pokemon, sort of like a 2-for-1. I used this egg strategy to evolve Reller into Rabsca and then Bramblin into Brambleghast while hatching some useful Pokemon like Applin and Gothita. I used the eggs to hatch a few more Pokemon I was missing, including Slackoth, Magneton, Bonesweet, Shuppet, and another Eevee to evolve into Jolteon. After all was said and done, I had reached 340 Pokemon. I decided next I should finally get the trade evolutions out of the way, so I booted up my other Switch and proceeded to trade Haunter, Scyther, and Slowpoke to get their respective evolutions before trading them right back. This also gave me a good chance to evolve Finizen because you need to be playing in co-op when the Pokemon levels up past 38 to get Palafin. Most of what was left at this point was more cleanup work. I evolved Charcadet into Armorogue, caught some random Pokemon like Impidimp, and evolved my Noibat into a Noivern. A lot of these Pokemon were pretty annoying because they were all either rare or had high level requirements for evolution, but eventually I hit 368 Pokemon and felt ready to tackle the Ruinous Quartet, a set of 4 legendary Pokemon that are unleashed after you pull their 8 swords hidden throughout Paldea from the ground. This made them some of the most tedious Pokemon to collect because you need to pull a total of 32 hidden swords from the ground. Over the course of the next 2 hours, I had caught all 4, putting me at 375 Pokemon. All that was left to catch on Scarlet was Poltegeist, which I couldn't find the evolution item for in Goldango, which required 999 Gimmighoul coins. I already had 754 coins at this point, but since the game had barely been out, there wasn't a full guide on the best place to grind for these things. This unfortunately meant I had to spend the next 50 minutes running around the map looking for Gimmighouls and chests to get coins. Finally though, I hit 999 and could evolve my Gimmighoul into Goldango. The only Pokemon left that I could still get in Scarlet was Poltegeist, and since it was still really unclear at the time where to get the evolution item, I opted to swap to Violet so I could capture the exclusives. This meant beating the entire game a second time. My strategy was to trade over my overleveled Skeledirge because the expectation was it'd still obey its original trainer even if I didn't have the badges yet. Unfortunately, this isn't how Pokemon Scarlet and Violet work, so Skeledirge was unusable. I decided to switch up my strategy to trading over Pokemon from Scarlet that were just below the level cap and focus on beating gyms and titans to progress the story. This was working well, but by the time I defeated the Ice Gym, which was my 7th gym badge, I was feeling dead. I had been streaming for 42 hours straight, only taking short breaks to eat food. No matter how much I wanted to beat this in a single stream, I just couldn't. My body had reached its limit, and I had to make the tough call to end the stream. The plan was I'd sleep for 6 hours and start my stream back up at 10 AM on November 19th. So when I woke up the next morning, I quickly ate and immediately went live on Twitch. Even though it was only 6 hours, I felt incredibly rejuvenated and tore through the rest of the game. During the creator section at the end, I started to catch a few of the version exclusives, but it really didn't start to pick up until after I beat the game. First, I'd catch Future Dog, followed by the remaining Paradox Pokemon in the crater, putting me at 387. I followed it up with Clawitzer and Clauncher, Ice-Q was next, then Gulpin and Swalot. Shortly after, I missed a shiny because I wasn't paying attention, and then caught Mischievous, which I'd eventually evolve later on in Scarlet. After that, I got the evolution item for Charcadet, which I'd planned to use later after trading it over to Scarlet. The last Pokemon I needed was a Bagon, but once I caught that, I was at 397 Pokemon and could trade everything I needed back over. The whole process took a while, but just past the 49-hour mark, I was done. I did some brief grinding to evolve Shelgon into Salamence for Pokemon 398. Pokemon 399 was Poltegeist since we finally knew a consistent cracked pot location, and all that was left after that for Pokemon 400 was Ceruledge. I had the auspicious armor from Pokemon Violet that I traded over, but I didn't realize I didn't have an extra Charcadet to evolve, so I'd have to catch one. I made a sandwich that increased the encounter power for fire types and went searching. Several minutes later, I found one and used the evolution item. Oh my gosh, 400 out of 400. So now we gotta go back to the academy. Okay. We're technically not done yet. We're not done yet. Aim to register 400 Pokemon species in your Pokedex. Once you do, press the X button in your Pokedex app and you'll get a nice little completion mark. I'd love if you could show me when you get it. Why do I have to do an extra step? Dude, it's giving me so many achievements. What? You're telling me I could have been getting items? I could have been getting free items for catching Pokemon this whole time? I've been doing this for the last 49.5 hours and I could have been getting free stuff? Dude, this would have been so useful for completing the Pokedex. All these like XP levels. Amazing, you completed the Pokedex. This means you've encountered every single Pokemon there is to find in Paldea. Yep, here we are. We've registered 400 species of Pokemon to the Pokedex. Research on the Pokemon of Padelia region is moving ahead like never before, and it's all thanks to you. I know I visited this strange shop the other day and picked up something a little something. And we got the shiny charm. On November 19th at 5:58 p.m. Eastern Time, I completed the Pokemon Scarlet Pokédex entirely on my own. Over the last 3 days, I had spent nearly 50 hours, but the question remained, was I first? Well, sort of. From what I can tell, I was the first person to complete the Pokemon Scarlet Pokédex entirely solo, meaning every Pokemon in both Scarlet and Violet was comped by me on a legitimate copy of the game after release, fully recorded and streamed. However, I did learn that the streamer Estelle went on a similar journey, finishing the Pokédex earlier on the same day, taking advantage of trades with viewers to get the version exclusives. So for completing the Pokédex in general, yeah, they're a legend and beat me out. But for an entirely solo run, catching every single Pokemon on my own, I think it's safe to say I was the first. Thanks for watching.